Hey guys, it's Christina Paulden here, and you're listening to the replays of the Breastfeeding Awareness, Inspiration, and Story series. That's right, all day long, we're replaying breastfeeding stories from moms and specialists. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy. Hey guys, I'm Christina Paulden, and welcome to the Teaching a Love of Learning podcast, your go-to podcast for building a love of learning in your little ones. Thank you for tuning in today, and enjoy the show. Hey guys, it's Christina here. For Breastfeeding Awareness Month, I wanted to put together a series to help inform and inspire moms to breastfeed. So throughout the month, you'll hear moms and specialists share their breastfeeding stories and expertise. It's my prayer that this series provides you with the knowledge and support you need while on your breastfeeding journey. Please keep in mind that this series was created for informational purposes only. Please do not disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking help because of something you may have heard on this series. Enjoy. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. In today's series of Breastfeeding Awareness, Inspiration, and Stories, we have Cordelia Spence here to share her story with us. How are you doing today, Cordelia?
I'm great. I'm super excited to talk about breastfeeding.
So happy you're here to share your story. Thank you for coming on and agreeing to share your story. Whenever you're ready to share, we're listening.
Okay. All right. So first, let me start by saying that I am a mom of 5. I have 5 amazing children. I had my first child when I was 19 years old. So my breastfeeding journey has been very interesting with lots of twists and turns, but it's also been a very long span. And I had my first son, and I initially didn't really think about breastfeeding as something that I was just absolutely going to do, because the way I grew up in the area that I grew up in, everyone was, formula, bottles.
Mm-hmm.
I did not really see breastfeeding. I did see my older sister when she had my oldest niece. I remember she breastfed for a short time. So I remembered being very curious about that. I was about 10 years old, and I didn't fully understand what it was. I just knew that she would feed my niece milk from her breast. So that stuck in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So once I had my oldest son, thankfully, I delivered with a midwife, which was something, again, in my community. I lived in, what they would call, a lower income type of urban community. So, everything was very cookie cutter, very much do everything to me, almost the opposite of nature. So most of the time, again, I didn't see anyone breastfeeding. So thankfully, I happened to have a midwife that helped to deliver my oldest son. And she never talked about formula. She only talked about breastfeeding. So from there, it opened up my mind, and I had the experience of breastfeeding my oldest son for about 10 months. I still supplemented sometimes with formula, just because I still was working on my mindset about breastfeeding. I still was thinking that I had to give him formula. So he around 8 or 9 months, I would give him formula once in a while. But overall, I breastfed him until he was about 10 months. And at 10 months, he actually self-weaned. He just stopped taking the breasts, which was interesting to me. But at that time as well, I was doing a lot more research and learning more about natural ways of, caring for children, rearing children. He had a great pediatrician. So he actually was telling me, don't give him formula. So that's why I said it was sparingly he would get formula. But at 10 months, he self-weaned, and it was just interesting. He was a very vibrant child, had a great appetite, and he just stopped breastfeeding. And I didn't think anything of it. I actually felt like it was just his time and he chose.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew from that moment forward that if I did have any more children, that I was absolutely going to breastfeed, and I was going to try to let my child at least self-wean instead of forcing them at the typical age that we were taught, or that I was taught in my community, was like when they're 1 year old, they go from formula to cow's milk. So that always stayed in my mind. And then 7 years later, I had my second child, and that breastfeeding journey was a lot different because I had an unplanned emergency C-section with him. So I was dealing with recovering from the C-section. I was dealing with, life with two children now. Now as a stay-at-home mom, there's just a lot of different changes and a lot of new things that were happening around that time. So breastfeeding, although I knew that's what I was going to do, it was a little bit challenging for me the second time around. So I did experience mastitis more than one time, probably about twice, because when my son was about, I'd say 5 or 6 months, I actually went back to work, and that was just like, that did not work with my breastfeeding. I was working in a corporate setting because I was working in a college, and I was not allowed enough breaks to pump.
Right.
And that's how I wound up getting mastitis the first time around. And so from that moment, I decided to supplement with what I thought was, with organic, highly recommended type of formula for the time when I was working, that he would drink formula, and then I would still be pumping when I was at work. And then, that was my objective, but he refused the formula.
Mm.
He refused the formula. So, and I wasn't pumping enough. And I found this because I was so stressed out. I was so stressed with worrying about pumping enough milk. I was so stressed with, I was having leakage, I'm in here in meetings and my breasts are leaking, and, so that experience, like I said, it was different. It was interesting. And for my son, I still breastfed him until he was around 13 or 14 months. And then he would take the bottle, and I would still pump the milk, and he would drink it from a bottle. So that was actually really helpful towards the second part of my breastfeeding journey with my second child. Now, the thing was, why I say I had a long year span, from 2009 up until 2016, I breastfed straight. Because so I had my 4 children back to back within 5 years, and my last 2 I actually breastfed them up until toddler time. So I breastfed straight until that was my second son, straight until I had my third son, and my second son self-weaned again when I was probably about 5 or 6 months pregnant. He'd stopped breastfeeding. Mm-hmm. So then I had like a 3 month, a 2.5, 3 month, little bit of a break there. And then my third son was born. So then same thing for him, I breastfed him straight. Then I got pregnant, and I breastfed him majority of the pregnancy, probably till around 6 or 7 months again. And then he didn't really self-wean, to be honest. Now with him, my third one was where I started to take my boobs back, as I call it. I started to take my boobs back at that time because I just was so depleted. Mm-hmm. And my pregnancies were really challenging. So I was really depleted, and I was just like, I cannot breastfeed anymore. And plus I knew that I was about to have my next child, my 4th baby. And I was like, I need just like to get myself together, because I was just really battling with I had morning sickness pretty much throughout my entire pregnancies, for all of my pregnancies. So it was really, really rough on me. So for him, I kind of just started to dial back his feedings until it became only at nighttime. And then I started to use the bottle for him. And for him, because he was almost 2 years old by the time I had my second daughter, I would give him, hemp milk, almond milk, and I would still give him breast milk, but only in a bottle, because I had lots of pumped milk. So that's that journey. So we're already in that was 2009 to 2012. We were in about 3 years now into the second half of my breastfeeding journey. So that's 3 years in. Then I had my daughter. Now that that whole experience was so different.
Mm-hmm.
Although I had already had 3 children and I had breastfed them and they self-weaned and I supplemented sometimes and all of that, my daughter was a totally different experience. Like I was a full-time stay-at-home mom at that time anyhow, because I had quit my job with my second son. Just to go back, just to put it in context, I had quit because it just wasn't working for my goals as a mom to be
Yeah.
able to take care of my child versus getting in the workforce, because I was just really building a career that really I didn't like. So
Mm-hmm.
I had wound up leaving that by the time I was about 4 months pregnant with my third. Okay. So fast forward to my daughter. Once she was born, um, it was just at that point, I realized the power struggle that can take place with a child who knows what they want as far as their nutrition, as far as their body, as far as their comfort. And then me still not realizing that I was having some of those stories playing in the back of my head saying, oh, well, you have to stop by a certain time, or she's getting too big to be breastfeeding,
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I was really having a lot of the challenges with confronting a lot of those societal pressures about how long to breastfeed, about the fact that I needed to cover up, because my daughter, she did not play that. There was no cover going over her when it was time to breastfeed. She would snatch the breastfeeding cover off and was just like, no, like I'm not, I'm not doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the time when I started to really look within and say, okay, Cordelia, like, what are you really doing? Why are you doing this? Because if we're trying to have a gentle, peaceful breastfeeding experience, it's not just about the nutrition on the inside. It's also about my bond with her. It's also about me, just
Right.
feeding her the characteristics that I want her to have, as well as my other children. So that's when I really started to confront that. And I started to, I still would pump with her, just because with her, I had an overabundance of milk. It's like she couldn't drink enough. I had so much milk. So with her, I started to pump and freeze.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the first time that I actually started to store up my breast milk, because the other times I would pump for them feeding in the moment or feeding in that day, but it wasn't where I had such an excess that I had to literally like freeze it and mark the date on it because I had so much milk. So with my daughter, it was an experience with me getting in touch with my body again and connecting with her, but also finding my voice as far as it comes to being a mother, and as far as it comes to breastfeeding. And I really started to look into the long-term breastfeeding, where I'm starting to question myself, saying, oh, well, she's getting too big, but then looking at other people in other countries where they breastfeed their children up until they're 6 or 7,
Mm-hmm.
and looking at the science behind it. So that kind of really helped me, although she was my fourth child. And by that time, I was almost 5 years. How old was she? Oh, that was in 2012. Yeah, I was sorry. I was about 3 or 4 years into breastfeeding straight. This is the only time where I start to feel more liberated, and I started to feel like, you know what, I'm gonna go with whatever, because I had
Mm-hmm.
had a home birth at that. Believe it or not, I had a home birth. I was the parent that was making food. I was the parent that my children I would listen to them and they could tell me when they wanted to eat solid food. So it was a lot later than other people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the other outlines. So yeah, with my daughter, that was a really, really interesting experience. So with her, she was the first child um, that I fed all throughout the entire pregnancy, because I wound up pregnant with my fifth and final child, my
Mm-hmm.
son. And I breastfed her literally throughout the entire pregnancy. There was no gap. She did not stop. She did not care. She did not stop. I was like, oh, well, she's not going to like the taste of the milk because I'm having a baby. No, she did not care. She kept on going, and I still had an overabundance of milk with my daughter. So she was my first child that I went through the entire pregnancy, let go a lot of those restrictions. I let go a lot of the stories, the mindsets, the expectations of other people, and I just went with it. And so that was my first experience after I gave birth to my youngest child. That was my first experience tandem nursing. So my fourth child and I started to tandem nurse because my daughter was not giving up breastfeeding and I had a newborn. So I had to learn an entirely new way, not just physically how to breastfeed, but also like organizing my time around their feeding schedule,
Right.
knowing I had to learn like which breast was best for which child.
Mm-hmm.
So they each actually had their own breasts. And what I found so fascinating about that is the breast that I fed my daughter from, the milk looked, because I was still pumped too, but that milk looked totally different and ran different than the milk for my newborn.
Mm.
So I started to see even more like the magnificence of a
Yes.
woman's body. And I was just like, this is amazing. And, I had less struggles with discomfort, mastitis, and all of that stuff when I was tandem nursing, when I just let go of everything else that was kind of holding me back from
Yeah.
going with the flow. And I was like, wow, breastfeeding is really not just the physical aspect, because it was the
Mm-hmm.
mental part. Once I
Mm-hmm.
let go of all of that, it flowed literally and figuratively.
Yes.
And it was such an amazing experience. And I did I did a contract job a short time while I was tandem nursing, but I was pumping. I had more freedoms
Mm.
at this particular organization, and I was tandem nursing. I had so much milk, but this was the kicker, another monkey wrench. Sometimes things don't go as we plan, right? I had to, again, learn to let go of control.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, I'm going to work 3 days a week. I'm going to work six hours a day, so I can build up my resume for something else I wanted to do. And my newborn, my youngest son, was just like my oldest, like my second. He would not drink from a bottle, even though it was breast milk. It was no formula involved with my last three, but he would not drink from a bottle at all, at all. So I was like, okay, once again, I was at a crossroads. What do I do? Because I wanted to continue, I had made up my mind, I'm going to continue this breastfeeding journey, and I'm going to let my children decide, when they want to stop. I'm going to let my children, decide when they feed and all these things. So again, I had to make a decision. I started to get really stressed out, and I was also going through, I'm going to throw this in there because I think it's important for breastfeeding moms to really understand about the emotional, mental, the spiritual aspect of breastfeeding.
Yes.
So at that time with my youngest son, I had went back to work, for many reasons, but it was because I knew that deep down that my marriage was ending. I was a stay-at-home mom at that point. By that time, I was a stay-at-home mom of 7 years, and I had been out of the workforce. So I had made a choice to go back and take a job so I can build up my resume, because I knew stuff is going to hit the fan soon, and I need to cover myself because of the type of relationship that I was in.
Mm-hmm.
So even in that time when I was going through so much emotional turmoil and emotional stress, it was refreshing for me to be able to still hold on to that part of my power.
Mm.
And sometimes women don't look at breastfeeding as a standing in our power and standing in our natural born. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it really is powerful to understand that our bodies produce everything that our children need, from antibodies to vitamins to minerals to nutrition, and how our breast milk literally changes to meet the needs of our child. Sometimes it'll be more thin if it's for more thirst, and it'll be thicker for more satiation for their nutrition. And I was just like, you know what? I was in the middle of that. And when I became overwhelmed and anxious about my life, that's when I had mastitis.
Mm.
So I had went several years without experiencing an infection from mastitis. And
Mm-hmm.
then when I started to, have those emotional challenges, I had gotten mastitis. And I realized even then, even more, okay, there is a totally different connection that I wasn't even looking at.
Right.
So yeah,
Oh.
I breastfed through all these different changes up until my youngest son. He was about 3.5.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he was 3.5. My daughter was 3, and he was 3.5, and I had just gone through so much stuff with my separation, moved, and all these things. And again, I was starting to feel stressed again. And I had a conversation with him. Interestingly enough, at 3.5, they're very, very, very perceptive. And I talked to him and said, mommy is really, really tired, because he would breastfeed like all the time. I'm just like, okay, like at this point, what's really going on? Like I was trying to connect. I'm like, is this emotional? Like what is going
Mhm.
on? Because you're 3.5, you straight eat food, you're not hungry. So what's happening? But when I was ready to end that breastfeeding relationship, because it's a relationship, it's an exchange. I was ready to end and he wasn't fully ready to end. So the way that he was able to wean at 3.5, we had a conversation and we talked about him feeding less. I still was pumping because I had an overabundance of milk. And believe it or not, my daughter, she wasn't drinking directly from the breast, but she would drink her breast milk from a cup because my youngest would not drink pumped breast milk.
Mhm.
So I talked to him and we started to dial back where his nursing would only be at night and when he woke up in the morning. But throughout the day, he would just drink water, eat fruits, and if he wanted breast milk, he would have to drink it from a cup. And then from there, we slowly phased out of the nighttime feedings. And yeah, he was 3.5, and that was the end of my 7.5 years straight
Woo.
breastfeeding journey the second time around.
Wow, girl. Well, that's
Yep.
amazing.
Yes.
You talked about just how, the stress, it has a huge impact on our bodies and also our children's
Hmm.
bodies, and they sense that as well. So it's really important that we're making sure we're taking care of ourselves,
Hmm.
that we're able to take care of everyone else that we have to take care of.
Yes.
So that's amazing. Could you tell me,
Thank you.
what do you wish you would have known before you started breastfeeding? 7 years ago, or I know it's been a 7 year journey. What do you wish you would have known before you first started?
Well, I wish I would have known, even going back to my first son, my oldest son, um, I wish that I would have known the the awesome the awesomeness that are of our bodies, like the power that our bodies have. Although I was doing some of the work to kind of go through like the expectations and like the mold that's kind of set around the community that I grew up in, I just wish I would have known more to listen to my body and to fully trust my body.
I like that. I like that. Because
Yeah.
I think that's something we struggle with, is just trusting our body that it
Mhm.
will heal itself, it will
Mhm.
produce milk, and just having that trust. Again, it's a mental thing. If you focus on the issues and the problems, then there will be issues and problems. I like that.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
Okay, so is it possible for you to summarize breastfeeding into 3 words?
3 words. I would say empowering, exhausting at times, and liberating.
Liberating, exhausting,
Hmm.
empowering.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, so would you like to, for just the moms out there that are currently breastfeeding or that are interested in breastfeeding, would you like to offer them any words of encouragement?
Sure. So the words of encouragement that I would offer to any mom that's breastfeeding, no matter what your experience is or where you are in the journey, it would be to trust yourself, to follow your gut, and to let go of all the limitations that even may be subconsciously there. Like when you trust your gut and trust yourself and follow your gut instead of what other people expect you to do, or instead of what
Hmm.
you may have seen other people do, I think that really changes the experience of breastfeeding. Like to embrace the magnificence of your body.
Right,
It's not there's nothing wrong with nursing your child. There's
right.
nothing to be ashamed of. I would just say, like, to really embrace it, and you know what really helped me too? Um, literally understanding the science behind it, because then I was able to build up that confidence and feel like I am a powerful something.
Hmm.
Look at what my body can do and what my breasts were made for, what they were designed for. So yeah, I would say embrace the journey, know the science, follow your gut, and trust yourself.
Oh, thank you so much, Cordelia, for being here and sharing your story. It's extremely powerful. Could you
Okay.
let the listeners know where they can find you?
Sure. So you can find me on social media under Evolution Mama is one handle. The other handle would be Her Vibrant Life with a Y. So it's Her Vibrant LYFE dot hervibrantlife.com. And then also on Facebook, you can follow the private group, which is the Vibrant Life Tribe.
Thank you again, Cordelia.
You're welcome.
To the listeners, I want to hear from you. I want you to list all of your breastfeeding concerns and questions in the comment section. Let us know what they are so that we can help you get those answered. Thank you all for tuning in. Talk to you soon. Thank you for tuning in to the Teaching a Love of Learning podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show. For more resources and tips on how to create a love of learning in your little one, visit teachingaloveoflearning.com. Be sure to subscribe so you're notified when new episodes are posted. Talk to you soon. Hey guys, it's Christina Paulden here, and you're listening to the replays of the Breastfeeding Awareness, Inspiration, and Story series. That's right, all day long, we're replaying breastfeeding stories from moms and specialists. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy. Hey guys, I'm Christina Paulden, and welcome to the Teaching a Love of Learning podcast, your go-to podcast for building a love of learning in your little ones. Thank you for tuning in today, and enjoy the show. Hey guys, it's Christina here. For Breastfeeding Awareness Month, I wanted to put together a series to help inform and inspire moms to breastfeed. So throughout the month, you'll hear moms and specialists share their breastfeeding stories and expertise. It's my prayer that this series provides you with the knowledge and support you need while on your breastfeeding journey. Please keep in mind that this series was created for informational purposes only. Please do not disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking help because of something you may have heard on this series. Enjoy. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. In today's series of Breastfeeding Awareness, Inspiration, and Stories, we have Leslie Jones Sessler here to share her story with us. Leslie, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. How about yourself?
I am doing good. Thank you so much for being here to share your story. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me share my story.
No problem, no problem. Whenever you're ready to tell your story, we're listening.
Thank you so much. My pregnancy experience was unique. I had a history of multiple miscarriages and fibroids. I knew that my son Sammy would probably be early, as my perinatalogist kept saying, "We've got to get you to week 34, and everything after that is a gift." Well, I also had placenta previa, and Sammy was born 7 weeks early, weighing 4 pounds. It was a cesarean birth, and shortly after giving birth, the neonatologist came to us and said they did not think Sammy's stomach was connected to his esophagus, and that he would need to be transferred that evening to another hospital, where he would then undergo surgery 2 days later to connect his stomach to his esophagus. My husband would spend the days with Sammy at his hospital and then spend the evenings with me at my hospital. So I recall that when my breast milk first came in, I was so excited, along with the nurses. And then there was the liquid gold. My two sisters had breastfed their babies for a very long time, and I just knew and hoped that that would be the case for me. Well, 2 days later, when Sammy went into surgery, the physician came out and told my husband, Randy, that Sammy's stomach was connected to his esophagus, and that after he was born, they had punctured his esophagus with the NG tube. Sammy then had to have gastrostomy tube placed into his stomach. That's a G tube. on the third day of his life. This is a tube that, when it's inserted through the abdomen, will deliver nutrition directly to his stomach. Sammy had to take my breast milk this way. If not, he would aspirate, causing my breast milk to go into his lungs, creating an infection or pneumonia, and the damage could be severe. So I wish that I would have known that not only would my baby arrive early, but that this could and would happen to him. When I was released from the hospital 2 days later, I had my breast milk in tow and spent every day pumping for the next 14 months, which is called exclusive pumping. This is the process of removing the breast milk from your breast at regular times throughout the day. The milk is then given to the baby either by a bottle, tube feeding, as in my case, or an alternative feeding method. Well, Sammy ended up spending 68 days, that's 68 days, in 3 NICUs, and I pumped every single day. I would use a feeding pump to pour my breast milk into the bag that would then flow through the feeding tube extension and into Sammy's little stomach. In weeks that turned into months, that then turned into years, Sammy would suffer from reflux and dysphagia. And I'll just stop for a second. It's amazing that as I'm telling you this story now, I'm not crying, because trust me, for years, I could not even get through the first few words without crying, knowing that my baby was suffering this way, and this is how he had to eat. And for years, I was wondering, will my baby ever be able to eat and drink? So Sammy would have difficult and discomfort in swallowing and keeping food down. My breast milk or formula, which I had to also give to him at times, would sometimes come up with the reflux and the dysphagia. And the fear was always that Sammy would aspirate with breast milk entering his lungs, and knowing that this could be dangerous for my son. Also, he would fail so many swallow studies and have multiple surgeries. My husband and I would travel to many hospitals, and our hopes would be so high on our drive to the hospital, hoping and praying that he would pass the swallow study. And he'd sit there and we'd put food into his mouth, liquid, different forms of liquid they'd give us. And then they would tell us, I'm sorry, but he failed. You know, I recall the day that the medical team wanted to see if Sammy would be able to drink my breast milk directly from my breast. After help from the nurses and the lactation specialist, Sammy latched on, and it was such a beautiful moment that I'll never forget. But seconds later, the monitors went off, and it was a very scary moment. Sammy was always connected to so many wires, so many monitors from day one. And it showed that he was refluxing. So they had to immediately take him from my breast and from me and work on him. Sammy would never, ever drink breast milk directly from my breast again. So for the next 14 months, I pumped and I pumped and I pumped. And I recall one day at the hospital when the social worker mentioned to me just how surprised and happy she was that I was still able to pump my breast milk day in and day out. And I looked at her like, really? You're surprised? And she said that the majority of mothers who have babies in the NICU have milk that will dry up due to all the stress. And in that moment, I got it. I got it because I was very fortunate that I was able to spend the whole day with Sammy. I'd leave first thing in the morning, get there by 7 o'clock or before, maybe 6 o'clock, 6:30, so that the doctors would come in and do their rounds. I'd be there throughout the entire day and leave there by 11 o'clock at night. So I was in there holding him, caring for him, pumping, pumping, pumping. And I'd see so many of the other NICU babies that would cry or be picked up by the nurses. But of course, with nurses having different schedules and having to get that baby and that baby, I knew that this was fortunate for me, and we were blessed that I could be there with Sammy. So again, I'd spend the whole day with him. I cherished our kangaroo care. I would pump, I'd read books to him, I would love on him. I would do so much, so much. This was a baby again that we dreamed of having. We prayed to have 5 miscarriages, fibroids, a high-risk pregnancy, and he was our miracle baby. I remember after 68 days with Sammy and 3 NICUs, when my husband Randy had to go and purchase a deep freezer just so that we could store all of the breast milk. I had that much breast milk that had been pumped for 68 days. Both the kitchen freezer and the deep freezer in the garage were completely full of my breast milk. I stopped exclusive pumping my breast milk after 14 months, and Sammy drank formula after that. He had an awesome feeding and speech specialist, amazing, amazing woman. And at age 3.5, Sammy finally passed the swallow study, and this is where all the good tears come in now. He was finally able to start eating and drinking while always being monitored, just in case he did aspirate. And I'll tell you a real quick story. I remember one day when I had so much breast milk in the freezer. We were home, Sammy's here, I'm here, my husband's here. I had so much breast milk in the freezer, deep freezer. And I went out to make, I wanted to make a shake, a smoothie one morning. So I went out to the deep freezer to get the fruits, the fruits that were in the bag, the frozen fruits. And I took it out, came to the kitchen, and I realized that it was very soft and like liquidy. And I said to my husband, "Hey, Randy, do you know what's going on? This is so liquidy." And the look on his face, he looked like he was about to cry. And he said, "Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. There was the other day when I was trying to see if the lawnmower was working, I unplugged the deep freezer and I plugged in the lawnmower cord, and I forgot to plug back in the deep freezer." And in that moment, I looked at him and I could see how hurt he was. And I said, "It's okay. It's okay. We'll just start over." And I think about, I could have been mad, I could have been angry. I've got my baby. We have our baby. For 14 months, I was able to breastfeed by pumping, exclusive pumping. Our baby's alive, he's healthy. And so I'll just start again. We've had 5 miscarriages. We'll just start again. We'll get through this. I called the nurses at the hospital, and they asked how long it had been out without being frozen and refrigerated. And it was too late. And I remember going to the sink and pouring each and every container out of my breast milk. But I wasn't mad because, again, we had our baby.
Thank you, Leslie, for sharing your story. That is extremely encouraging. The dedication that you put into breastfeeding is amazing.
Thank you.
Wow. Wow. I'm sorry.
I'm smiling. I'm smiling and I'm happy now. Again, I could not tell this story for years. My baby is now about to be 5 in September. So yes, God is good.
I was going to ask how old? So 5.
He's 4. Sammy's 4 now. He'll be 5 in September. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Again, thank you for sharing. Do you mind me asking you, what do you wish you would have known before you started breastfeeding?
I wish I would have known that my breastfeeding experience was going to be unique. Again, my sisters did it like no problem whatsoever, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful to see that they were able to breastfeed their babies, my nieces and nephews. And I just thought, you kind of feel like, oh, well, they did it. I'm their sibling. I can do it. I had no idea that that my breastfeeding experience was going to be one that was so uniquely different from others. And in a way, I feel it's a blessing now. Not that I didn't think it was then, but I really see the blessing in it now, because I'm hoping that my story can help somebody else. You know, maybe your baby won't be breastfed by your breast, as in my case. Maybe your baby won't latch on ever, and you will go to formula. And there's nothing wrong with formula. You know, it's just, what will happen to you is your story, your experience, your baby. The most important thing is that your baby is healthy and your baby is loved and cared for and nourished. That's the most important thing. And so whether it's months or weeks or years, or being fed through a G-tube or your breast or a bottle, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And it took me a while to get to this. I remember the day Sammy was in the hospital, and a nurse called me, and I missed her call, and I got her message. And she was saying that, "Oh, Leslie, I know you might be upset about this, but we're going to have to add some formula to your breast milk." And I was devastated. Like, what are you talking about? And I rushed, over to the hospital, and I was in tears. And I remember calling my, not to now start crying, calling my my sorority sister. She's like a sister, my dear good friend, Bernie Russell, who was an OBGYN in New York City. And Bernie was just like, "Leslie, as long as he gets food, it's okay if it's formula. He's going to be fine." And she walked me through it. She talked me through this experience. And I was able to finally be like, you know what, Bernie's right. Dr. Russell is right. And the nurses here are right. The doctors here are right. It's going to be okay, because Sammy was refluxing, had dysphagia. The food would not stay down. It's coming up. The monitors are going off. One day they came and grabbed him out of my hands. He had turned purple. I'm just like, no, what matters is that it's food. And so I just hope people go into this knowing, parents, moms go into this knowing that what you expect, God may have another expectation. One you never even dreamed of. One you never even heard of. Before this, I didn't even know about G-tubes. I know my husband, no. But now we are educated, and yeah, just be open.
Wow. So I was going to ask you if you would like to offer any words of encouragement, but I think you've already done that. So thank you again. Thank you for just coming on, sharing your story. I appreciate it.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I'm so honored. I am so honored and to know that this is going to be for Breastfeeding Awareness Month. And I hope that Sammy's story, his journey, our journey, can help mothers out there. So thank you for doing this.
You are welcome. Leslie, will you let the people know where they can find you?
Absolutely. So I am a mommy, I'm an educator, I homeschool Sammy, and I am a lifestyle blogger. And my blog is watchmonkeymama.com. Watchmonkeymama.com. I am also on Instagram at watchmonkeymama, and on Twitter, and it's Leslie at watchmonkeymama. And Leslie is spelled with an EY.
Thank you again, Leslie.
Thank you.
To the listeners, I want to hear from you. I want to know if you've had any issues breastfeeding your children. Let us know what those issues were, and let us know how you overcame them. Thank you all for tuning in. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you for tuning in to the Teaching a Love of Learning podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show. For more resources and tips on how to create a love of learning in your little one, visit teachingaloveoflearning.com. Be sure to subscribe so you're notified when new episodes are posted. Talk to you soon. Hey guys, it's Christina Paulden here, and you're listening to the replays of the Breastfeeding Awareness, Inspiration, and Story series. That's right. All day long, we're replaying breastfeeding stories from moms and specialists. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy. Hey guys, I'm Christina Paulden, and welcome to the Teaching a Love of Learning podcast, your go-to podcast for building a love of learning in your little ones. Thank you for tuning in today and enjoy the show. Hey guys, it's Christina here. For Breastfeeding Awareness Month, I wanted to put together a series to help inform and inspire moms to breastfeed. So throughout the month, you'll hear moms and specialists share their breastfeeding stories and expertise. It's my prayer that this series provides you with knowledge and support you need while on your breastfeeding journey. Please keep in mind that this series was created for informational purposes only. Please do not disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking help because of something you may have heard on this series. Enjoy. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. In today's series of breastfeeding awareness, inspiration, and stories, I will be sharing my breastfeeding story with you all. So I have two children. I have a daughter and then I have a son. And I breastfed them both until they were 2 years old. So to just let you all know, before we even had our daughter, me and my husband, we had complications with our pregnancies, but with our daughter, when we were able to just successfully deliver her, we knew that we wanted to breastfeed before, we had any children. I'm not really sure though, when I think about it, I'm not sure how that conversation went. I knew it was just something that I wanted to do, and then, it was something that he wanted to do. So I'm not sure how that conversation went, but we definitely knew that we wanted to breastfeed. And when we got pregnant, again, we were telling people, yeah, we're going to breastfeed, and just not really putting any thought into it, because which to us, it was just simple. You just nurse the baby and then, that would be it. So when I had my daughter, immediately after you have her, they tell you to do lots of skin to skin, and whenever you're comfortable, to go ahead and start nursing. I noticed that there was pain involved, and I remember asking the nurse, I said, this is painful, this hurts, is this normal? She said, yes, that's normal, it's supposed to hurt. But so I would just nurse her whenever she cries. That was kind of like my cue to just nurse her, or just kind of look at the clock and say, okay, she's probably hungry. But it wasn't until, I say, at least 24 hours, like the next day, when we were able to meet with our consultant. And I don't know, it's again, for us, we thought it was just something simple, but she spent almost 2 hours with us, talking to us and letting us know what to expect, and telling us, what to do if this happens. Like, but she sat there and she literally just poured everything she had, all of the knowledge she had, into me and my husband. And, for a while, I didn't even really know what to expect. Like, even when she came in, I really didn't even realize like who she was or why she was there. And then it took me a moment to say, oh, okay, she's here to help with breastfeeding. So, she started to just kind of watch me nurse, and I was telling her, well, there's pain, involved. And again, she was saying, yes, that's normal. But she had noticed that my latch wasn't a good latch, and my daughter's lip was not pulled out. So she showed me all the tricks to make sure her mouth is open, right before you nurse her, or right before you're about to put her up against the breast. Make sure her mouth is open wide so that that latch is really good. So she was very detailed. And just as she was examining me, she's looking, she's like, well, everything, looks normal. You should be fine breastfeeding, no problem. But she started to just go more into detail. And for a moment there, I was like, maybe I should write this down. So we got a little notepad and I started writing it down, because what she had explained to us was really a breakdown of what to expect. And she let us know that, like in like 3 days, your breasts are just going to start producing like crazy. And when it starts to do that, you need to put the baby on. You need to be nursing the baby. And she talked about growth spurts, how, when the baby is growing, is going through a growth spurt, they're going to be clustered feeding. And also, I believe it was like 3 days after the baby is born, they constantly nurse. Like they whine, and you have to constantly nurse them. This is what she was telling us. And again, we didn't know if any of this was true, or if any of it was going to happen. But I remember on the second night, our daughter constantly fed. She was clustered feeding, and that's all she wanted to do. So I wasn't even getting a lot of rest, because every hour she was wanting to nurse. And she explained to us that that was something that was going to happen, throughout the years. I think she said in 3 months it would happen, and then in 6 months, it's going to happen, and then, just throughout your breastfeeding journey, as the child grows, there's going to be days where all they want to do is just nurse. So me and my husband, we finally made it home, and that's kind of when it kind of got serious, right? Because now you're just kind of by yourself. It's just literally you and your husband. Or for me, it was just me and my husband and my daughter. And we're just trying to figure this all out. And everything was going good until like, I would say maybe the second day we were home. My breast was just so engorged that I could not get my daughter to latch on. And because I was breastfeeding, I'm producing milk. My body knows that it's producing milk, but the milk is not coming out. So, my breast is getting fuller and fuller, and it's extremely painful. So, and again, I could not get her to latch on. It was too much milk in there to where she could not even latch on. So I spent like all night and up into the morning just trying to get the milk out. I used a hand pump that was provided by the hospital. I used that to just kind of loosen my breast up so that I can get her to latch on. And again, this was things that was told to us. Like I had it on my list of what to expect. So immediately when I started to have difficulties, I said, let me look at my list. Like what was I told? What's going to happen, so that I would know that it's normal, and then I would know what to do. So when these things started to happen, I had my list and I knew what to expect and what to do. So, but finally, my daughter woke up. It was maybe like 5-6 o'clock in the morning, and I was able to nurse her. She latched on, no problem. And then there was just that relief of just, okay, like we're still doing this. And also of just that pain. Because like once the child is like nursing, you're starting to, your breasts are starting to go down, and it's not as painful. So that was just my experience with my daughter, just coming home or being in the hospital, then coming home. But I say after the first 1 to 2 weeks, we had it. We knew what we were doing. And I know for my husband that the consultant told us, or she told him, but she told us that 85% of successful breastfeeding journeys are successful because of the husband. And she said, even if you don't have a husband, it's going to be that support. And that really kind of helped him realize how much his help is needed. And he was there, like he helped me all of the way. And that really helped him to see how important he was, but also how important he is for me to succeed in this. So it was a journey for both of us. I experienced one thing, but then him, as being a support system, he experienced something totally different. His responsibilities were different. His concerns, were different. The pressure that he had, because now if 85% of the success rate is due to the support system, then, if it doesn't work, then that's a portion of that is on him. So, but again, after 2 weeks, we had it down and no problem. But I will say that I did not use any bottles, or I did not like pump with any of my children. I tried to do that, but just with me being a stay-at-home mom, it was really just easier for me to just nurse a child and then, just kind of go on about the day. There were times or days where I had to go run some errands or something, or, you know, I needed to get out for whatever reason. And I would just pump enough so that my husband could feed my daughter if she got hungry. But I had a handheld pump, and again, I just really used that if we needed it, but I did not really use bottles, and really my children didn't even really like drinking from the bottles. So, but yeah, I nursed my daughter up until she was 2 years, and for me, this was something that I was looking forward to. Like, I knew that I had an obligation because, again, I spoke with the lactation consultant, and she said, you need to do this for 2 years. You know, like, you can do this. Your baby needs you to do this for 2 years. So that pressure was on me to finish and do it for 2 years. But come 2 years, I was kind of over it. It was like, okay, this, we did it, we made it. So exactly when my daughter turned 2, that's when it was like, okay, we're done. And I think maybe a week or two before she turned 2, I just started to cut down on the feedings. And then eventually, like maybe the week before, she was just nursing at night. And then, you know, eventually by the time she was 2, she was done. And again, I was just kind of over it at that point. So I was like, okay, come on, 2 years old, come on. So a few years later, we ended up getting pregnant again and having our son. With my son, I immediately noticed a difference. So when we had him, I nursed him from one breast, and then I would like kind of set him down, and I noticed that he was crying a lot. And the lactation consultant, and it was the same one that we had 2 years ago. I was so happy to see her. But you know, she came in, you know, we talked to her. I was like, I don't know if you remember us, but you know, you talked to us 2-3 years ago, and hallelujah, because you know, everything you said was so helpful and all of that. But I was telling her how, like, my son keeps crying, like, I don't know what's wrong, because you know, his diapers are clean and I'm nursing him, but he's still crying. And she was like, yeah, that's because he's a boy, and boys, like, they like to eat. She says, you're gonna have to nurse him on both breasts. That's gonna, his nursing sections are going to be nursing off of both breasts. And with my daughter, that wasn't the case. She would nurse from one and then be okay. She would be full, and then I would just switch. Comes the next time she nursed, I would just switch. But for my son, he nursed from both breasts. And when I realized that, whenever I nursed him, I would nurse him from both breasts, and then he would be fine. But she was like, yeah, boys, they eat so much more than girls. And for me, this is true. Like, he could eat so much. Like, his nursing sessions were way longer than my daughter's nursing section. So he eats a lot. And even now as a toddler, like, all he does is eat. So I don't know if that's the case for you mamas out there that has had boys and girls, but for me, it is true that boys nurse more. So that was really the only kind of issues that I had when the lactation consultant came in. You know, again, we was like, hey, you know, we worked with you last time, but she just kind of examined me, and she was like, well, it looks like you know what you're doing, so you know, I'm gonna go ahead and leave y'all alone. And that was that. So we were in a hospital. Everything was going good. When we got home, everything was kind of smooth sailing for us. Even my husband, I think he was trying to wait to help again, because in his mind, he knows that 85% of the success was on him. But by that time, I kind of knew what to expect from going through it with my daughter. So even he was like, oh, okay, well, you don't really even need my help this time. You got it. And it was like, yeah, you know, I know what to expect. So, and again, I nursed him up until he was 2, exactly 2, because again, I was just over it. Come 2 years, I was like, okay, yep, done. So again, like a week before his birthday, I just started to cut down on the feedings, and then eventually, he was done. But he was done by 2. So that is basically it for our nursing journey. You know, nothing really different. You know, I think for me, I know that we would not have been able to successfully breastfeed, especially 2 years, if it was not for the conversation that I had with the lactation consultant, because what she was telling me was things that I had no idea. Like, even if I was to go before I had my daughter, even if I was to go Google some stuff, even if I was to go look at some YouTube videos, there's no way that I could have received or found the information or the knowledge that she had by, just doing random searches. So I know how important it is for our family to have had that moment in that time with her. And throughout the breastfeeding series, I've constantly stated, and it's not really even me stating it, I'm pointing it out, but the people that I'm interviewing are also stating that support is extremely important, and also knowledge. It's important that we know what to expect. It's important that we know what's normal so that we don't panic, because I think we have a hard time trusting our bodies, and then we kind of have a way out with formula. So it's like, well, if it's not working, if it's kind of inconvenience, if it's just too stressful, then we can always just switch to formula. So I think that's something that's kind of in the back of our minds, is that it's going to be okay if we need to get formula, we can get formula. But know that this is something that you can do. And if you've listened to the breastfeeding stories throughout the month, then you will know that everybody's journey is different. People have had to do different things in order to nurse their babies, in order to feed their babies, but it's possible. So know that as long as you have a support system, and it doesn't matter who the support system is, but it needs to be someone that's going to be in your corner, someone that knows the knowledge. Also, they know what to expect, so that they can be there for you, because you're going to be so overwhelmed with just being a new mom, with taking care of a new baby, that it could be something that could be looked at as an inconvenience when we can just go in and get formula. So we're going to need that support system there to help us make sure we get through at least the first couple of weeks, until we're better, we're healed, we know what we're doing. But we also have to be informed. We have to know what to expect. We have to know what's normal, what's not normal. So that's my breastfeeding journey. I want to take a moment to encourage all of the breastfeeding moms out there, or anyone who's interested or thinking about breastfeeding. Just know that you can do this. This is what you were created to do. And really think about what it is that you want for you and your baby. And then try to make sure you're putting things in place to make sure you succeed at that. Always be thinking ahead. And if you know that you want to breastfeed, know that you're going to need support. Where are you going to get that support system from? And know that you need to educate yourself on what to expect. Where are you going to get this knowledge from? I believe I interviewed someone who stated that she went to a consultant before she even had the baby, and she talked about how beneficial that was. She knew what to expect going into it. She knew what she had to do and what to expect. So just be sure that you are getting that knowledge from somewhere. I also want to take a moment to thank all of the moms and specialists who participated in this series. I'm very thankful and grateful that you've shared your story. And I know that all of the stories are so unique that this is really going to help moms really relate to each and every one of you. We don't know how our journey is going to be, but with all of you sharing your stories, we know that regardless of what happens, it's still possible to successfully breastfeed our babies. So thank you all who participated in the series. It really does mean a lot. To the listeners, I want to hear from you. I want to know, what have you learned throughout the month from listening to this series? What knowledge have you gained? Let me know in the comment section below. I'll talk to you all soon. Thank you for tuning in to the Teaching a Love of Learning podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show. For more resources and tips on how to create a love of learning in your little one, visit teachingaloveoflearning.com. Be sure to subscribe so you're notified when new episodes are posted. Talk to you soon.